am Nancy Richard, and I am the temporary host of Right Now. With me today are Judith Ivie and Judith Campbell, the Judys, and we're going to be talking today about their careers as writers. We're also going to talk a little bit about publishing and how they got to be friends and a lot of other stuff. So I'm going to start with Judy Ivie, and I'm just going to ask you, how did you get into what you're doing right now? How did you become an author? How did you become a writer? What happened?
I really don't think anybody becomes a writer. I think you are one or you're not.
Okay.
And as you know, with most writers, I was always writing as a kid. I can remember my first $10 check from a little publication called The Horn Book out of Boston. You know, I think they still publish. I really do. And I was hooked, you know, and I never looked back. I haven't written continually over my life, but in the mid-'80s, I did nonfiction, 3 nonfiction books through the traditional route. And then in the early 2000s, after I'd raised my family, I took a stab at mystery writing and enjoyed it, because that was the kind of thing that I always read and enjoyed, and have been very fortunate in that it took off, and I've developed a following, and I'm delighted.
That's great. Judy Campbell, what about you?
What she just said.
What she just said.
I've been writing all of my life. I never thought of not writing.
Mm-hmm.
I was a rambunctious, active, mischievous little 5-year-old, so much so that I spent a lot of time in the hall closet outside the classroom or behind the door because I was bored. And I didn't like that anymore, so what I started doing was taking, if you remember, the math paper, fold it into 4 squares.
Oh, sure.
And then I'd write stories and illustrate them, and therefore keep myself out of trouble. And my first check was from Yankee Magazine, you know, in the 70s, that I never thought I will be a writer. It's just something I always did. And my first nonfiction books were watercolor instruction. And then I moved into ministry and found you. That's the really quick story.
All right, so tell us a little bit about finding Judy.
This Judy.
Yes.
How this Judy found that Judy.
Or how did the Judys find one another?
I should tell that story.
Okay.
Because
So, yes.
that Judy put out a call for submissions. I think you had probably just opened Mainly Murder Press.
I think about a year, yeah.
Yeah, because I found a call for submissions in my New England Mystery Writers magazine at 2 o'clock on a whatever day afternoon, call for submissions, looking for New England writers writing mysteries set in New England. Don't throw me in that briar patch. Mwah. So pound, sent it off by 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, my.
And if there are writers watching this, here's your hint. Do what the submission tells you to do. If they say 500 words, don't give them 5,000. Do everything right. So I did it, and I heard back from you in less than 48 hours saying, I like what I see. Can you send some more? Oops.
Don't do that.
Not to smack the microphone. Heart is pounding. I sent off, you put, 3 or 4 chapters you wanted?
3 chapters,
3
yep.
chapters. I sent that off. I heard back in again 48 hours. We like what we see. Can you send the whole manuscript?
How long did it take you to write those 3 chapters?
Yeah.
All my life. I started writing the mysteries in the 1980s, put them down. When divorces, life, a PhD, entering ministry, children getting married, all those kinds of things took place. And in 2006, I picked them up again with my wonderful friend and mystery writer, Cynthia Riggs. I went to her writing group, and I picked the whole thing up again.
So you already had them written before you...
I had them started.
You didn't have to write them in 24 hours before you had to submit them, right?
I had them started.
Talk about a little pressure.
Don't submit a manuscript that isn't written yet. No.
No. This was written. I had done 1 round of submissions, and I kept getting the same. I don't think I ever told you this. I got the same comments from a whole bunch of agents who.
What were they?
Your story is wonderful. Your characters are delightful. Your writing does not measure up to your query letter. You write one hell of a query letter. Your writing isn't so good. Go back and polish up your writing and come back to us. And that was also. Tell me about it.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy where I am. So 3 weeks after that, less than 3 weeks, you wrote back to me and said, "We love it, get rid of 8,000 words." And I said, "Can I cut them out myself?" And she said, "Of course," because that is the joy of working with an independent press. And I want you to say more about publishing with an independent press because it's the best.
No,
Okay,
I'm glad you
so-
think so.
It is.
Tell us a little bit about independent press. What is it, and how do people get involved with that?
An independent press essentially is an entity that is a traditional publisher for the most part, but it has been enabled by computer technology so that we can be a little faster on our feet, we're smaller, we're quicker. As she's told you, you don't wait 6 months to hear from us. We like it or we don't like it, and we let you know pretty quickly. We're flexible, and we enable authors. We do not stand in their way. We don't set up barriers. We don't deal with agents. Our contracts are one size fit all. Everybody is treated the same, and they're treated well, and they're treated fairly. We enable.
Really? Get this kind of personal attention?
You do get
Can I
personal
sign up?
attention.
Can you write?
I always thought so, but I'm not always totally convinced.
So it's about flexibility and a personal connection and mutual support. We're in this together. It's a team effort. You're not just some drone at the bottom of the food chain of a large publisher. We're in it together. We're a team.
Okay, so it started with you. It started with a call for a submission, and you sent something in 500 words, and then you found out that your press was interested, so you sent a couple other chapters, and then what happened?
She said yes.
How did you feel about that?
I catapulted down a flight of stairs.
You did?
Screeching.
You didn't break anything.
My 2 cats flew in opposite directions, also screeching. I was like, wow, what's wrong with her? It was absolutely wonderful.
But
And
you
what
see,
was the title of your first book?
A Deadly Mission.
Okay, let's hold this up. A Deadly Mission. That was your first book.
That's my
And
first
when was it published?
2010. Accepted 2009, came out in 2010.
That sounds right, yeah. But you see, you ask why I do this. How often in your life do you get an opportunity to help not one, but maybe a dozen people a year have a feeling like that?
Yeah.
That's
Could there be
so
anything better?
Awesome. No, I can't imagine. All of those good vibes going to you.
Absolutely.
Your life must be charmed.
Great karma.
Yeah, great karma.
Well, I know for a fact that you work like hell. You work really, really hard. You work really fast. We have exchanged. Well, I said I whine sometimes, and I get everything from sympathy to shut up, which is fine because we know each other. But working with Judy has been a total joy, and because of the independent, the smaller press, I get to design my book covers with your approval. In fact, I want to hold this one up because this is the doors of the Plymouth Unitarian Universalist Church, for people who don't know that.
This is the predatory mission.
A predatory mission.
Okay.
It's about a sexual predator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read all
They
of your
aren't
books.
all gay, you know.
Some of them are pretty chilling,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, well, there is a message in what I'm doing, as there is a message in yours. Particularly, talk again about...
Well,
Yeah.
I don't find my mysteries, I'm also a mystery writer, if we haven't covered that, have a mission as yours do, a cohesiveness, except for the cast of characters. But I wanted to say that one of the things that is so delightful about your work and so appealing as publishers is that it does have this cohesiveness and a mission and a purpose beyond entertainment. And also I let her design her covers because she's an artist.
Yeah, see, there you go. So, Judy Campbell, tell us a little bit more about what you've written and how many books have you published so far? Or
Published?
written?
Well, we're the 2 Judys are sort of neck and neck. We both have 6 on the table. her next one is coming out before my next one because she is the publisher. So we know where we stand here.
It's a little less expensive than having a baby race, which my mother and her best friend had. They had both of them with 5 kids,
Bite
so
your
maybe it's probably
tongue.
better.
No. We are way past that. My books are about a lady minister who started out as a college professor. They are absolutely autobiographical, with the names changed to protect the guilty and not so guilty. My husband in real life is a character of an Englishman named Chris Stokes. In the books, he is Frederick. And when some of my parishioners, some of my friends, colleagues say, "Is that a little bit biographical, Judy?" Oh yeah, it certainly is. And I know you have some characters in your books that are autobiographical, so.
Absolutely. You know, in fact, when I do speaking engagements, one of the first questions that comes up is there really an Armando, which is my heroine's husband's name? And I always just say, yeah, I married him.
I have a question about that. How does it, your real life is sort of out there. How does that work? Do your relatives get on you about it? Do they ever say anything, or do your husbands mind?
Not so far.
I leave out the juicy parts.
We're discreet. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
A lot of cut to shadow.
Okay. Well, also, but if it's somewhat autobiographical, some of the auxiliary characters are from people that you know. Are they composites? Are they direct hits? What
Yes.
are they?
Yes, you hit it right on the composites. I mean, I never would showcase a person that I know in real life or have known in real life. Every character that I write about is a composite of more than one person that I have known. Some of the ladies at the law firm together became Strutter. Strutter is so named because of her walk. And there was, in fact, a lady I worked with who had the nickname Strutter because she had that sachet. There's no doubt about why she got her nickname. But her character was that of another lady that I worked with who was very motherly and Jamaican and all of that. So that came together very nicely. And I think that's true.
It is absolutely true. Excuse me. Mine are also a composite. People ask me about Father Jim, who is a major character in mine. He's a gay Catholic priest. And Olympia, my protagonist, has a wonderful relationship with Jim. As any of us who have, straight women who have had deeply caring relationships with gay men, the issue of sex never gets in the way. So you can be as honest with that friend as you can and supportive. And it's perfectly wonderful. And I wanted to highlight that. And I also wanted to, with Father Jim, who is a composite, show that gay Catholic priests are not de facto predators. He is a fine man. He is a fine priest. He is just a prince of a man. And I wanted to make him such because I think the poor Catholic Church has been beat up enough. And I want to make a case for decent, wonderful gay people that are normal parts of my book.
And you do it very well.
Thank you.
do.
And isn't it great that we've come that far?
Yes.
We could, 20 years ago,
Wonderful thing.
20 years ago, we never would have been able to say those things.
So Judy Campbell, you would like to read something from, would you like to read something from one of your books? And which book is it? And
Twist my little arm. Of course. It's from the most recent to come out. You hold it up.
An Improper English Mission, which I read very recently, and it was delightful.
It was delightful,
Okay, so
And
give us a little bit of background here so we can get the context.
Frederick and Olympia are in England. Olympia has been invited to a retreat center because something unpleasant is going on. They're taking a day off to go on a walk. Frederick is a character. Frederick is a delight. He marches to his own drum. I will say no more.
Okay.
After a full English breakfast of their own, Frederick and Olympia set off walking in the direction of the next village. They took with them a couple of granola bars, 2 large bottles of water, and one of the maps that Frederick had saved from the night before. The mid-morning November light was pale and clear, and the country air was cool. Olympia could smell fresh earth and dried grass and occasionally the slightly acrid scent of coal smoke. There had been some talk of showers later in the day, but the two planned to be back long before mid-afternoon, when they were predicted to occur. By mutual consent, they agreed they would not speak of anything relating to the suspected trouble at the retreat center, and instead give themselves over completely to the beauty of the day, the joy they found in one another, and the expanse of West Yorkshire moorland unfolding before them. Frederick was completely in his element. He was on his home turf, his beloved England. Even his accent had become stronger over the last few days. Olympia, however, was not quite so enchanted. Breathtakingly beautiful as it was, within the first hour, she was exhausted. "Are we there yet?" said Olympia. "Getting winded, are we?" "Not at all. I just wondered how far it is from point A to point B. The map wasn't all that clear." To prove her point, she squared her shoulders and deliberately stepped up her pace. Frederick looked thoughtful. "One of the men said last night it was about 2-hour walk. Perhaps we should sit down and rest for a few minutes and have another look at the map." Olympia realized with some dread that she'd entrusted the map, and therefore their route, to a man with a sense of direction of a floorbrush. The two stopped and leaned against a moss-flecked stone wall. Frederick pulled out the map and one of the water bottles which they shared. Then he unfolded the map, turning it this way and that, in an obvious attempt to make sense of it. "Bugger," he said. "Wrong direction?" asked Olympia with not a little trepidation. "Wrong map," said Frederick.
So your husband, Chris, he reads these books, and what does he say?
And we're still married.
Oh, well, that's good.
I wouldn't trade Chris for all the tea in China and all the pounds in England. He is my best friend and my first editor, and without whom I could not write these books.
That's cool. So he doesn't mind being
Say it well.
referred to as someone who has no more sense of direction than a floor brush.
He'd agree with them.
Okay. That's good. Well, most men are kind of like that, actually.
Yeah.
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 They hate to ask for directions. I know from my own husband, he doesn't like to ask for directions, so I foiled him by getting a GPS.
And then you can
Don't you
always
love
yell at
this?
her. You can always yell at
Just
her.
love
Yeah,
this.
when we're traveling, we usually get into some pretty strong fights about it, especially when we're in the UK and we're driving on the opposite side of the street. I'm the one
You said
that
that
does
well
the
on
driving.
the other side.
How do you do
I'm the
that?
one that does the driving,
Shut your
and
eyes.
he does the navigating, and so I think we went around the city of Glasgow about 10 times before we found our hotel.
And you're still married?
We're still married.
I want to hear from this lady. Make her
Okay, what about your husband? How does he feel?
My husband does not interfere with the writing process at all. He will read the book when it's through. If he doesn't like it, he says nothing.
Uh-oh.
Wisely. If he does like it, he'll say what he does like about it. But I'm always very careful to be very complimentary. Armando, when the book is
Oh, he's lovely.
gracious and lovely and
Handsome dude.
sexy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, very.
So
Handsome,
what's
lovely,
not
and
to like?
sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I
Right,
guess
honey?
most husbands would like that. They really would. So tell us a little bit more about your relationship with each other. I was really amazed. You guys are great friends, but you had never met before this morning.
Before this morning.
You know, that's today's technology,
It's
I
possible.
guess.
It's
And
totally
probably,
possible.
I was wondering if that had something to do with the fact that we are writers. You know, I don't know about you, I live mostly inside my head. I do. I don't need a lot of FaceTime with people. And so by communicating in words and emails and photos and so forth.
And our
reading,
books.
And our books.
We open our
share a
souls
lot.
in our books.
Absolutely.
You know.
I felt like I know her like a sister already. I really didn't need to lay eyes on her. I'm glad I had the chance to. But
so maybe this will be the start
yeah.
of something. You'll actually see one another at least once a year.
It would be nice. It would be
would-
nice.
that
But if
would-
not, you know, the emails
friendship
fly
will
back.
go on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what do you prefer? What do you like most? Do you like writing the most or publishing the most?
I like aspects of both, and I hate aspects of both. I think that in your work as well as life generally, a change of misery is at least a change.
That's a good one. I like that. A change of misery.
So I try to keep moving, and I move from the tasks I like to the tasks I don't, and so forth. And I'm exaggerating. I like most of both of them, or I wouldn't do them.
Exactly.
They're both a joy to me. And I'm as busy as I want or need to be, and the people I work with are a delight, and the people I publish are, for the most part, a delight. There are a few bad apples always. But I enjoy both the left brain and the right brain stuff. I don't know what else to say about that. Yeah.
Do you find that it's, do you separate the two in like a certain workflow? You'll write one day and work on the publishing on a different day, or do you do them on the same day? I find when I switch brains a lot, there's a lot of clashing of gears.
Well, I don't know about what Judy would have to say about that, but I don't think anybody who is engaged in a creative process can do it all day. You write a couple hours, maybe, and then you go on and do something else with the rest of your day. And that's pretty much how it goes with me. When I'm writing a book, which I do about 6 months it takes me to write a book, I set a quota, 500 words before you get out of that chair. It's apply the seat of the pants to the seat of the chair rule.
Okay.
It's the ball and chain thing.
Yeah, and then then I go on and do other things. So I'm always doing both at the same time.
All right. Well, let's see. What else would you like to say?
Can she read?
Of course she can.
I want to hear you read.
What would you like to read?
Do we have enough time for me to do about a 4-minute?
I think we probably do.
Probably do. I'll read fast. All right. This is a new book that's coming out, and it's called Dirty Tricks. And the setup is that my protagonist, Kate, and her 2 friends run a business together. One of them, Margot's aunt, has relocated to Old Weathersfield from Atlanta. And it turns out that she has a public persona as a mystery writer, but she has a secret sideline as the publisher of erotic romances. So once the girls find that out, they're intrigued, of course, by her second life, and they're helping her set up her new house, and this is where we are. So what's it like working with authors from all over the country, I said, returning to our earlier theme, I being Kate in this case. They must be a fascinating group. May's snort was so much like Margot's when amused that I couldn't help but smile. Fascinating, to be sure, but not always in a good way. Most of the good ones are lively, creative, and just as important, realistic about their gifts. Unfortunately, there are a few whose self-esteem is wildly disproportionate to their talents. Strutter looked over. Forgive me, but aren't you an author too? May grinned. That's why I can tell you the truth, because I'm one of them. I have a healthy ego too, but I'm able to assess it realistically and rein it in a bit. Her expression turned thoughtful. I'll tell you a little story. There's a gal back in Georgia who tried unsuccessfully for years to get a publisher before deciding to self-publish her own stuff. It's easy enough to do these days on Amazon and Google and what have you. Then she sent a manuscript to me, and I initially agreed to publish it. But it was so full of mistakes and sloppy grammar, I wound up spending more than 40 hours getting it into passable shape. No good deed goes unpunished, I said. Exactly. So I was already regretting that. I sent her a very rough cover concept done by my designer, thinking she would be able to visualize the final version. But this woman turned into a snake. She condemned everything from my intelligence to the cover designer's abilities. Mind you, she'd been a handful to deal with from the get-go, but now she was showing her true colors, and they weren't pretty. So I decided I'd had enough, and I released her contract, as it was my right to do. And want to guess what happened next? She tried to sue you, Strutter opined, and Margot and I nodded. Good guess, but a lawsuit would simply have been dismissed. No, she started emailing and calling and whining, begging me, please, please, to reconsider, blah, blah, blah. She left 2 messages on my home phone and called my lawyer's office. She even drove to my house and left a letter in my mailbox. Then she got her husband to email me, implying that his wife was going to have a nervous breakdown if I did this dreadful thing to her. Oh my God, that's so weird and scary, and she lived close to you. So then what happened? I sent her one last email saying, stop your nonsense or I'm going to have to involve the police. And she immediately sent another email. So I called the cops. A nice young officer came by, read the emails, listened to the voicemails, and concluded that this woman was harassing me. He and his partner paid her a little visit and told her to knock it off. Worked great. But that's not the end of the story. Good grief, what else could there be, Strutter wanted to know. Well, I'm not going to tell you.
Very good. So, and when is this book coming out?
September, actually, is the
September.
official date. Yeah.
Okay.
A few advanced copies, actually, if people email me and want to get an advanced copy for purposes of reviews, they're welcome to do that.
Okay, that's great. And when is your next book coming out?
After hers.
Yeah, well, when is that, huh?
October.
October. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Put a little tickler on our lists, on our calendars for
The dynamic duo, the two Judys.
Whichever one you're talking to, she's the other Judy, or
Yeah, of
she's
course.
the other Judy.
the other Judy, like the other side of the road.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. Well, it was great having a chance to interview both of you today. I know that originally you, Judy Campbell, had said, "Oh, we're going to get our husbands to walk out here," but I've been informed by the crew that your husbands have refused
Flat out, as
to
they do.
it.
Husbands are
They're-
like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
they are. They do tend to be shy sometimes about these things. And what I sense from this is that both of your husbands are somewhat of the wind under your wings here and helping you along and being supportive and all of that stuff. So we're going to give a shout out to the husbands. Go ahead.
Oh, well, my first book says it all. The title is Waiting for Armando, and my real husband's name is Alfonso, and the book is dedicated to him. And the dedication is that he was always worth the wait.
Oh,
And he
that's so
absolutely
sweet.
is.
And what about you, Judy Campbell?
Frederick is in reality Chris Stokes. He bills himself as a professional Englishman, and he's one cool dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It was
pleasure.
Pleasure to
Thanks
meet
for
you.
having me.
It was
Yep.
fun interviewing you, my friend.
Being on the
And
other side of the camera.
join us again on our next episode of Right Now.